TerrenceM, who are our other match. Here we go. Match already in progress. Payton leads.
Oh my god, 32!
All right, well,
32 armor.
Payton leads 1-0, but he is facing a warrior with a whole lot of armor with his freeze mage deck.
And he is playing a Reno Jackson mage.
We've actually seen several Renos in freeze mage. I believe Kranich had Reno in his freeze mage deck earlier, but ooh, I believe this is actually just almost out of cards. This may be a game that's looking to go potentially to fatigue.
Well, Payton has like one card in the deck.
Does Payton also have one card? No, there's two cards, so yeah, so this does mean that Payton, you know, he can't really play most of the cards in him, but he does have that Reno. And that's a card that can actually make a
huge difference.
Make a very big difference in terms of how fatigue plays out.
The problem for Terrence is the fact that he most likely is lacking a way to activate Grom and to deal the 10 damage instead of 4.
It looks like we're going to see this Patron fall to a Roaring Torch. And yeah, this is a matter of just having to get rid of the repeat damage sources. Once you get to fatigue, burst damage isn't necessarily nearly out. There is a way to activate Grom,
but it deals 1 damage to yourself.
It does dig you deeper into fatigue. So, and yeah, it looks like Terrence. I wonder if he's perhaps aware that there's a Reno in the opposing deck, and he's, you know, doesn't want to potentially,
right?
You know, is perhaps trying to figure out how this is going to play out. Because if he does just go ahead and Grom now, the Reno is potentially a real problem.
Well, I have to discuss this with you. Double Loot Horrors, double Ice Lances, right? And there's a Reno Jackson. So does he play the Reno Jackson with a deck that is playing a lot of 2-offs? Or is that Reno Jackson just, I don't know, came out of the blue from a random card event?
We've seen quite a few freeze mage decks that do choose to use Reno Jackson because they have Arcane Intellect and Acolyte of Pain. They have the ability to draw through their decks fairly quickly, which can lead to the ability to just close out the game with the Reno late in the game. When you do get to a point where you're low in life, you survive via Ice Block, you play Reno, and suddenly your opponent has no ability to burst you down anymore.
The Reno is also very important that in the light of fatigue, fatigue kills you over your Ice Block.
Right.
And Harrison Jones will prevent that the turn before. So this might also change the dynamic.
And this is interesting because Payton is at risk of taking 2 fatigue next turn. He's effectively 16 if he were to actually Grom plus Slam plus the weapon is exactly 13, so he would not die to fatigue next turn through an Ice Block. I believe there's an Ice Block in play. So
is it? I'm not sure.
The Ice Block in his hand is not lit up, so that means
oh yeah, right. You're correct.
So Terrence actually needs to put Payton in a position where he dies to fatigue at the start of his turn. Because if he just attacks him down to a point where he won't die to fatigue, the Reno will save his life.
So what about Finley?
Well, I think he wants to save Finley because his hero power is very important at this stage. If they are sitting in fatigue, armoring up is the best hero power you have available.
But if you get mage hero power, you can also help.
Well, he'd have to use all of his mana in order to play Grom and enable it, unless he's also using the mage hero power to do that. It doesn't really change the dynamic here. So I would expect Terrence, because Terrence wins fatigue from here. He can just armor up, and Payton, the onus is on him to do something. And right now, if Terrence, he is going to go ahead and Finley. Okay. I'm actually somewhat surprised by that decision.
Oh, there's a shapeshift.
Okay.
Which is kind of good.
It's interesting.
Well, also Reinforce is not that bad.
Yeah, Reinforce is actually pretty good.
But Shapeshift basically has more benefit than Reinforce, because
I wonder if he's
additional damage. No, it has to be Shapeshift.
I wonder if he's going to pick Fire Blast because he doesn't want to slam his Grom. He wants to be able to ping it with Fire Blast. That might be what he's thinking.
So basically save yourself like 3, 4, 5 damage. Yeah.
Though Shapeshift does give you armor, so
Reinforce is kind of bad because your opponent will just ping it down, so you don't deal damage with your hero power. So basically, it's worse than armor up.
You're just neutral.
Yeah. So Shapeshift is basically, I think, the best option here. Wait. You have to use it, right?
Well, I'm curious. I think that because if he actually attacks here, then Payton does get to play his Reno. I think the correct play here is to wait. because now puts him down to 14. So he has the ability next turn, threaten to put Payton into fatigue. Put him into a life total where he will die to fatigue without attacking.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah. So here, now, Payton, he has to play Reno, or he dies to Grom. He could actually potentially just freeze Terrence's face, and he would be in a similar position. Although, actually, he's taking 3 damage next turn, so because of Finley, he actually would die to it, too.
This is a tricky situation. But so, if you played Reno Jackson, I believe you would also like to freeze the minions anyway. The minion. A very ferocious Murloc.
He is frozen. And yeah, he's going to go ahead and Frostbolt the face. So this does mean that, that Frostbolt Ice Lance is going to chip into that armor a bit, but because Payton will take 3 damage next turn from fatigue, that means that Grom this turn does not represent a lethal threat.
And will not see it this turn anyway.
Yeah, I would expect that we're just going to see Terrence shapeshift this turn and let Payton take his turn.
What an interesting match. It started out like when I saw the 32 armor, I was like, okay, it's over.
Yeah, I mean these fatigue games between Payton, because Terrence isn't playing Control Warrior. He's not playing a deck that has tank up and shield block. He's not able to get to that truly insurmountable amount of armor. But yeah, now Payton, he's just committed to Renoing, I think. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and Reno this turn.
It's still not looking good for him,
and look at Terrence's face. He did not expect that.
Well, he was playing around it.
Well, he was playing around. We saw he definitely looked surprised there. He was. His play was trying to set up a situation in which Payton did die to fatigue with Ice Block. Not necessarily that happens to play around Reno Jackson.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily that he was specifically, thinking about that card when he was making his decisions.
So he can't use Slam on the Hearthstone Jones because then if he executes that, you are lacking a way of activating your Grom. So you have to keep the Slam for the Grom if you want to deal the 10 damage. And Payton is getting next turn 5 damage, if I'm not mistaken. From the fatigue, so that will be half of the HP with 1 attack of the Grom. So additional draw is to 21 with the weapon. That's 24, and hero power that's 25. So what basically he needs to do is to set up. He needs to survive 2 more turns.
He could actually, if he wanted to, just Grom the. Oh, he's actually going to attack it. I was going to say he could actually just Grom. And then slam after attacking. So his Grom would be activated, and he wouldn't have taken damage back, and he wouldn't draw a card to put himself deeper into fatigue.
But now, Payton can use Pyroblast and win because of that? Well, you can't play Loot Holders.
Yeah, Payton can't play any more cards. This is now just, who wins the fatigue situation, basically.
And that looks like it's favoring Terrence, right? He's at 25. He gets the draw first.
I'm not sure exactly how this math works out. It's -5, then -6, then -... It's actually -6, 7, 8 effectively because of the damage that...
Yeah, because it doesn't really matter if it's 8 or 3.
Right. So, I mean, this game is decided. I'm just not sure who won. It's over. I'm not sure who won, but it's over.
And someone in Great Britain, there's Sotel, who is now famous face-palming, and it's like, how can you not know math?
Listen, man, my degree's in philosophy, okay?
6 damage.
And it's actually, yeah, this is going to be... It's actually, he's going to be at 1 next turn from this, and I think that Terrence is going to take, is it 6 or 7 here?
They basically have the same, so now it's taken 6.
Sorry,
7. And 7
and
for Payton. So he gets 8. So
I think Terrence loses.
No, Terrence wins.
Oh, no, you're right, because this is the tick that kills him. You're right.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was 1 turn ahead. Yeah, so Payton is exactly 1, but that is not enough. He actually finds lethal, though. Fire Blast to his own face. And you see a sigh of relief there from Terrence.
That was close.
That was clearly a very, very brain-intensive game.
Yeah, and it did look kind of different from the beginning, but without the Reno Jackson, that was already over.
Yes.
There's basically no way for Payton to even make a potential comeback. The Reno Jackson allowed that, but it wasn't enough. And Very heads-up play by Terrence, not attacking the turn when he was setting up for Grommash. That was very, very crucial, and it paid off.
All right, well, we will see Terrence with the Warrior again against Payton, who it looks to be playing, I'm guessing, a Reno Lock deck. We see a Power Overwhelming and Alex Strauss in the same hand. That probably represents a deck that's looking to combo with Faceless Leroy.
Yeah, but I'm like thinking if he plays Alex Strauss and PO and he wants to get like a consistent combos, then does he play Reno Jackson? Might be kind of like a version of Malgo's Warlock, just with bigger array of options, like
possible.
in early game. I don't
know. Generally, Malgo's decks don't typically tend to play Power Overwhelming. We do see Spellbreaker, Imp Gang Boss, Senjin. A collection of cards that typically represents a Reno in a deck.
Yeah, that's true. Like the Sanjin kind of gives it away. Well, we'll have to see. Ravage and Ghoul in opening hand doesn't really do much against a typical, not Zoo Warlock. So it's just a free drop that doesn't do much, but it's still like a SI agent for a Rogue on turn 3 just to get some board presence. That's basically it.
Yeah, and we do see the Acidic Swamp Ooze from Payton here could come up big later on. Though weapons are less important in the sort of modern versions of Patron. We actually, we do know this is a Patron deck. We saw an actual Patron last game. Previously, Patron decks were pretty heavily reliant on Death's Bite as one of their enablers, but the addition of Ravaging Ghoul, which you see in Terrence's hand, is a very key minion that makes them much less reliant on the actual weapons in the deck.
The problem is Warlock usually has a wide array of ways to deal with the patrons, because you have Hellfire, you have Shadow Flame, you have also, most likely, Twisting Nether, which might be played with a coin, but unfortunately for Payton, he's on the play, which kind of acts similarly, because you have the advantage of 1 mana.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in general, the Patron decks don't necessarily want to play the sort of Patron combo style against Warlock decks because of Hellfire and Shadow Flame and Twisting Nether. You're looking more to assemble an advantage with Battle Rage specifically. You play more as a mid-range Warrior deck that uses Battle Rage as a card draw and to try to combat the removal of the Warlock deck.
It's very similar to the early versions of Patron that were playing against Handlocks, and at the beginning of that metagame, everyone was saying like, oh, Patron is not favored against Handlocks, but it turns out people had to just switch the strategy, and the strategy was to play with Rotting Berserkers and charge instead of Patrons.
Unfortunately for the Patron players, and fortunately for the rest of us, that's no longer available. Warsun Commander now gives a little bit of different ability, so we won't see any 70-point damage turns here from TerrenceM. Payton, though, he now has, he has to figure out how he wants to deal with his board exactly. Bloodhoof Brave definitely makes combat a little bit awkward. The Imp Gang Boss can't get to that Armor Smith nearly as effectively.
Well, he can go Armor Smith into Imp Gang Boss, then the Bloodhoof Brave into Imp Gang Boss, and then Ghoul.
Well, it's actually Payton's turn, though, so he can't do that.
Yeah, what oh my god.
All right, well, we just see the Doomsayer come down and looking to at least make Terrence's life difficult here, if not clear the board.
Well, Inner Rage gives Bloodhoof Brave 7 damage.
Yeah, Inner Rage alone would allow the Brave to take down the Doomsayer. It's a pretty good use of it, too, because, as we were saying, this is not a matchup where the Patron deck is necessarily looking to make Patrons specifically.
Just when I say Payton, it's like, okay, he has to play Patrons.
It is confusing. We have Payton versus the Patron deck.
Yep.
Need to enunciate, or else no one will know what we're talking about. All right. Well, it looks like Terrence is looking for Acolyte of Pain. He's going to go ahead. Yeah, he's going to just go attack in there, and then Ravaging Ghoul, which will enrage his Brave, draw him a card, give him a bunch of armor as that Armor Smith dies, and let him kill that Doomsayer without really expending much in the way of resources at all.
And he gets also the card draw for in the upcoming turn, because even if that board state will be dealt with Hellfire, an example, you still get the card advantage from Acolyte of Pain.
I think Ravaging Ghoul may be one of the cards that has kind of overperformed compared to players' expectations. That's a card that when I first saw, I was like, okay, this seems like a pretty strong card in a Patron style of deck. Also good against Zoo type decks, but it has really, we hadn't seen at that time Bloodhoof Brave. The number of interaction that card allows has really been impressive.
But that was the same situation with the with the ghoul that we had in the usual patrons. So 2 mana, 1/3, Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to every minion, right? But this one has actually built in as a battle cry, which is more reliable,
Right.
because you can activate it on your wish, right? And that was the case with the old Warzone commander, because you could have charged with it, right? But in this situation, it's like new version of the old card with the old typical combo version patron. So I like this card a lot, but as you said, I wasn't anticipating it to be like a staple in the Warriors, right?
Yeah. One thing that's actually so great about it is that in a lot of cases when you're playing a Warrior deck or playing a patron or maybe tempo style of Warrior deck, you definitely want access to those sort of Whirlwind type effects. But the actual card Whirlwind in so many matchups is very low impact. It just doesn't do very much. But now, being able to play Ravaging Pool to get that board sweeping effect is much more effective. So,
and it's also way better against Zoom. For example, when you can gain the advantage of killing the possessed villagers, and you get additional damage on the Forbidden Ritual, which is, unfortunately for rest of us, Implosion is not alive anymore, right, in the format. And Forbidden Ritual has way less power. The power level of Forbidden Ritual is just way lower than Implosion.
It depends on what you're looking at trying to do. Making guys much bigger, but here we see what Sylvanas going to take. It is the Acolyte, so will potentially give Payton some more card draw power. Something he's not lacking. He is playing a Warlock.
Yeah.
So Terrence
looks
only
like
has the Ghoul in play.
But for Payton, that's the Twilight Drake tap first. Life tap and Twilight Drake.
It looks like he's just going to go ahead and use his Ooze here. He wants to get as much board presence and protect his board presence that he does have. So brave the draw for Terrence. And he does have, the ability to just go in and make patrons if he wants, but we don't know that Payton has the answer to the patrons in his hand with that Hellfire.
The Hellfire is key, basically, if you're lacking the Hellfire or the Shadow Flame, and we have to bear in mind that this is the most like Real Jackson version, so you play only one of each. It's quite huge in this matchup, but Terrence has that in mind as well, so he will not play the patrons into that, because he knows that he just loses immediately, because he has to sacrifice so much card advantage from his hand to build up the board with the patron, and that's being denied with just one card. That is just too big of a gamble.
Yeah, and Terrence is just going to go ahead and take down the Twilight Drake with that Execute off the Whirlwind, and just sends his Ghoul to the face. Bane of Doom, the draw for Payton here. I'm excited.
Amazing.
I want to see what comes off that one.
Well, there are some more Void colors, so it wouldn't have that.
You
much
can
of an
still get
impact.
Jiraxxus. It's not as exciting as playing Jiraxxus, but he's still a 315.
Yeah, well, Mal'Ganis is from GVG, right?
It's true. You can't get Mal'Ganis.
Yeah. That's quite unfortunate, because that would be such a swing.
What if he just cast it and got Mal'Ganis? What do you think? What do you think we'd do? Like, what would be the admin call? He just got a card that wasn't legal. It's like,
I would definitely call a judge.
It's like, wait a minute.
It's like,
I don't understand.
imagine something like this happens in other card games, and someone just pulls out a card out of standard.
Well, the thing is, that's something that like is in their control. Clearly, that's their fault. But if a player plays a card that has a result that shouldn't be able to happen, but does, what do you do? I don't even know what you do. Ooh, Reno there.
Reno.
So
that changes the way Payton will play.
Yeah, the texture of this game is now very different. Payton can use his life total very much as a resource, and he is definitely at a pretty significant advantage here. Terrence has those two patrons, but again, he's really digging for Battle Rage, and unfortunately for him, he has, it's weird. Oh, Life Tap is exactly what he's
great.
looking for. Yeah. Speaking of Battle Rage, that's kind of Battle Rage on a Murloc. And he's just able to go ahead and tap his way to find Battle Rage, to try and pick up the resources he needs to be competitive in this game.
So he was anticipating the life tap, that's why he has already 8 armor.
Yeah, he wanted to set that up so it wasn't too painful. But now he actually wants to get his armor gone so he can actually do damage to himself to activate the Battle Rages that he's going to draw off of this life tap.
What a combo! That should be just, available to warriors.
He's setting them up,
Your magic shall
Right,
not
Spellbreaker calms down the Frothing Berserker, not nearly as upset as he was before.
Just calm down. Calm down, keep calm. and that's not great.
All right, now Grom is a powerful card, but not enough to close the game out right now. And Blood to Ichor, all right, not, again, a powerful card in some situations, but this is not a board where it does all that much. He could potentially get through the Senjin with his Sir Finley, Blood to Ichor, and the Axe.
I think that's something you have to do because you need to build board control.
Oh, he's just going to go ahead. Okay, he's just going to clear it off with leaving his guy with 1 health, which saves the Blood to Ichor, which makes some sense.
And he's setting up lethal basically for next turn.
Yeah.
So what Payton needs to do is either set up a defensive board with Defender Argus, or just heal himself up to 30. But
or both. He actually has
both,
the
yes.
ability to Reno and Defender if he wants to, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and Bane of Doom. Ooh, Infernal's a pretty good one.
And that's how much damage available for Terrence. He has 12.
He has
14,
3
15
plus
damage.
3 plus 12. Yeah, he's actually he's just shy.
So if he draws a second Inner Rage,
Yeah, if Payton does nothing to heal or taunt,
and
Terrence does find Inner Rage number 2, he can actually just win the game.
well, that has to be Defender Argus. And he actually turns up only 1 minion.
Yeah, wants to protect the 4-1 though, to no avail, as that Ravaging Ghoul is likely to be able to just kill it.
Lifed up first.
Well, it's not necessarily clear. It's possible that he wants to play Patron alongside Ghoul, decides not to.
Well, can still do that, but...
Well, if you wanted to play, say, Patron Ghoul, you know, maybe Blood to Ichor in there as well. But does decide to just throw that into the Infernal. And I imagine we will see, yeah, gonna be Patron.
But the Inner Rage, it's so valuable.
Yeah, he still has Blood to Ichor as an activator, so he's not without ways to turn Grom's Enrage on.
Well, if you use it, the other option is to use Blood to Ichor and Whirlwind. Because if you go for patrons, you might as well just overextend heavily. Because if you have 3 patrons, basically 4 patrons, your opponent still has 2 minions to kill 2 fresh patrons. It's not that great.
Yeah, well, this is a lot of patrons, but they are all still vulnerable. He does get the Infernal down to the point that Hellfire will kill it if Payton does use that to clear the board.
But fortunately for Payton, Hellfire and Harrison Jones is actually 10 mana.
You mean Hellfire and Reno?
Sorry, yes, Hellfire Reno.
I was like, I don't think Harrison Jones is in his hand either, but yes, Hellfire plus Reno does leave him at 30 in a totally cleared board. So that Grom no longer looking nearly as scary.
Why did I say Harrison Jones?
I don't know.
It's on the same, you know, it starts with the same letter.
He's
and
also an explorer of a kind.
Yeah, and he has the hat as well.
Yeah.
Oh, because of that.
All right, well, we see the board full of patrons come again.
And this time,
and now, once
there's
again,
no
Payton
AoE.
must find an answer to patrons.
Well, he has mind control tech.
He
if
does.
there's a Bran, he will get 2 minions.
Ooh.
Oh, let's see what
he
will
actually,
happen.
I mean, he also has Power Overwhelming and Faceless in his hand. Big Game Hunter, that's not really what he's looking for. Gonna see a life tap. Alex Straza, not really all that effective here. MC Tech is going to take a 3 health patron.
So that's 9, 11 damage available to Terrence and 10 damage from the hand.
Just gonna go ahead and throw the Big Game Hunter out there. Not looking to hunt any big game. Ooh!
That's 12.
Inner Rage, so that is not quite lethal yet.
And you know what? We could have just seen that Terrence was counting damage with drawing like the cursor over the card.
Yeah.
And that can tell your opponent, okay, I have Grom in my hand, because why would I count the damage in this situation when you're so you have so much HP points, right?
Yeah, so he has 11 on board, 12 burst in hand. So that is 23. Needs to get a little bit more damage in before it is going to be lethal.
I like this.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to go ahead and make himself a slime and another guy. Looks like he's choosing not to life tap, which is a pretty heads-up move. If he's
with the Leroy and Faceless,
if
right?
he's afraid of Leroy plus Faceless, he has not seen an Emperor, so he's not afraid of the power overwhelming Leroy Faceless, but the 12-point burst is still a very real threat.
Well, this can be, unfortunately, this can't be a board clear.
Yeah, there's
9 mana.
Well, he could play Brand Power Overwhelming Shadow Flame. That's a possibility if he did want to just do that, but does decide to go ahead and Siphon Soul, putting himself back up to 26. There is a Battle Rage. It's kind of an awkward spot because he'd love to be able to activate.
Right.
Yeah, but he's going to go ahead and just do it. Getting
He used
himself
2
2
blood
cards.
to Icar.
I believe he's played both. Yeah,
Yes.
he may have a. Ooh, there's a Wild Pyromancer. Only 3 cards left in Terrence's deck too.
So and I think there's second weapon still in the deck, so few Rorax, and we have seen both inner rages.
One Whirlwind. So
One
if he has
Whirlwind,
a second
but
Whirlwind, he does have.
I'm not sure if he actually has those because he has Slam. Okay.
Okay, yeah, there's the slams. So, and this is a lot of damage, and Terrence still at 14. So.
This is not looking good for Payton.
Well, Payton does have access to, if he needs it, the Brand Power Overwhelming plus Shadow Flame to clear the board. But
well, he can just use Faceless on Patron and just Shadow Flame that.
He could do that too. It's also a possibility. That does close the window of drawing Leroy to potentially just blow up his opponent. And also, the Faceless could represent lethal with your opponent's Grom.
My secrets will uncover.
Well,
yeah, and we're gonna see that. So he is gonna hold on to that Faceless, and I mean, frankly, we may actually just see Terrence run out of threats because he has 1 card left in his deck. He has Grom, 2 Slams. He has a Korkron.
Korkron is actually
all right. So
huge.
Korkron's gonna go face.
It's still not enough. If the Korkron gets killed,
Yeah,
that's it. There's no way of killing your opponent because Payton will just use Faceless Manipulator on the Grom and
right.
kill it.
Yeah, and now. Yeah, there's Mortal. So this is, I mean, Payton's actually a little bit of an awkward spot here. He can.
If he uses low Jaraxxus, he will be at 11, and if you paid attention,
He can Alex Rosa himself.
okay.
So now, yeah, Terrence has only Grom and Slam. So if he activates Grom, he can only do 14 with Grom plus Slam. He can attack his opponent to 1. That's not lethal. His opponent facelesses the Grom and kills him.
Yeah.
If he trades with Alexstrasza, he just has no way to win because his Grom is gone. His opponent does anything and removes his Korkon, and he loses.
So it seems like a really dead end for Terrence.
It
does.
looks really bad. Terrence, you see him sort of
he's
calculating on his fingers there, trying to figure out what his options are.
His only out is basically attack with Grom. The problem is that if he activates with Slam, he draws a card, so he deals static damage to himself, and then he dies at the beginning of the next turn, basically.
He will. I think, yeah. He take 1, then he
takes 2 if he will Slam now.
He wouldn't quite die. Oh no, he takes 2. You're right. No, he actually already took fatigue because he takes 2 now. Yeah, he actually has to go ahead and. What is he? Okay, he's just hoping that the Grom lives here.
Well.
And that's not going to work.
Well, the Mortal Coil has huge value.
We can actually see, you can just faceless that,
and
Mortal Coil.
the Mortal Coil, and just deal 10 damage to the face.
If you really want to.
Well, there's no way your opponent can kill you even
It's
from
true.
15. Like, there's no way possible. Especially, I'm sure that Payton paid attention to what was played
right.
in previous games, and he saw slams in previous games, so he knows at least one of that is a slam.
Oh, he's just going to go ahead. I think it looks like he may. No, he's gonna go ahead and copy the Grom here.
Whoops.
And yep, there it is, the concession. Terrence concedes the game, so Payton leads 2 games to 1 with this Reno lock deck.
And what was left for Terrence?
We don't know what exactly the initial classes that they were playing were.
Well, we had actually Rogue, Warlock, Warrior, and Shaman was banned for
correct.
Terrence.
Yeah, Payton's Rogue was banned. His total lineup was Mage, Rogue, Warrior, and Warlock. It does seem that apparently we have Warlock remaining for Payton.
Warlock.
We're going to be
Payton was playing Warlock.
Yeah, so or rather for TerrenceM, it's actually going to be the Warlock mirror match that we're going into here.
It looks very similar as well. There's Alexstrasza and Terrence.
Yeah.
There was an Alexstrasza and Terrence opening hand.
All right, so this is
Basically the same deck.
It does look very similar, yes. So the dynamic of this matchup is very much about a lot of the sort of maneuvering in the middle turns and getting reasonable trades with your resources, getting the life tap. You're both sort of digging to the same fundamental end game, so you need to pay attention to when your opponent is able to actually get to the point where they have the burst possibility. The Emperor Thaurissan that we see
is the MVP
is a very, very important card. Ooh, Black Knight. That is not a card that we saw in Payton's deck. It's actually a card I'm a huge fan of in the environment right now. Even against Warlock, or rather Shaman decks, there's a lot of targets because of Thing from Below.
Thing from Below, yes.
And it's so good. Not necessarily in the tournament environment, but on ladder, there's so many of the Cthulhu Druids with Dark Arakoa, and lots of good targets.
Yeah. Also, a card that holds a lot of value in this matchup is Twilight Drake, because it's such a grindy card. If your opponent doesn't have the ability just to silence it, and Mortal Coil, then you get multiple trades with just one card, and that builds a lot of card advantage for one of the Warlocks here.
Though we do see the Dark Peddler, which brought along a Flame Imp.
So they can trade for the Senjin, and then you can play your Twilight Drake, if that's something he would like to do. And I think that's actually the best option.
Effectively, he's trading his 2-drop for his opponent's 4-drop, because that was a Peddler that brought along that Imp. So
it Senjin basically attacked with charge 1 turn, because Flame did the 3 damage, right? But the problem is, like, how do you deal with the Twilight Drake? You only have 1 silence in the deck, and whatever you play will be endangered just to die from a Abusive Surgeon, Mortal Coil. Well, the Abusive Surgeon might not be in the deck, but there's... And Dark Peddler was already played, so no, never mind. So that might be
Twilight Drake is a huge threat for sure. And here we see Terrence kind of debating exactly how he wants to deal with it. Looks to be looking to life tap here, finds Jiraxis, and then is just going to go ahead and Doomsayer. Wants to try to get rid of this, or at least force his opponent to commit some serious resources. Payton,
there's a Spellbreaker.
Well, he has a couple of options. He could Spellbreaker it. He actually could even coin Mortal Coil and Bane of Doom it.
That's an option.
It's committing a lot. Though Spellbreaker actually has fairly significant value in this matchup.
Sylvanas, right?
There's Sylvanas, and
another Twilight Drake.
Yeah, his opponent's Twilight Drake, for instance. I would expect the Spellbreaker is at least the most immediately attractive looking play, because yes, you develop your board and you eliminate the threat of the Doomsayer. You get to keep your coin as well.
And the coin might be important if you play your Jiraxis first. That's something you might also try to do as the first player, because if you are able to just change your life tap into a 6/6 minion, basically 0 effort, right? So this builds up such a huge momentum.
Yeah, but now the Sylvanas comes down. With the Spellbreaker gone, the Death Rattle is a real threat. Both of Payton's minions are pretty high value, so doesn't want to give either of them up here, but doesn't necessarily have a great option to clear the Sylvanas off without doing so.
Well, he can play Bane of Doom and count that it will give Blood Imp, and then will be taken by Sylvanas.
But then it gives Jiraxis, and everything goes wrong. I mean, he has the option of attacking into Sylvanas with his Twilight Drake, and then Mortal Coiling, or playing Bane of Doom. If the Sylvanas then steals the Twilight Drake, he could just stack into it. Looks like he's actually he's gonna do exactly that. Attack in with the Twilight Drake, fire off the Mortal Coil, see what gets stolen, see what he draws. He gets a Farseer and loses his Twilight Drake. So now this is sort of reevaluating, what do I do next?
Senjin doesn't seem like a bad choice here.
Yeah, I mean, Senjin does currently stop the Twilight Drake, so it protects your 4/3.
Yeah, seems like the option for Payton.
Yeah. So as far as turns where you deal with opponents, and there's an Abusive Sergeant, so that's actually
okay. That's very interesting, because now you have this deck has bigger access to buffs that will be applied to Leo Jenkins, right? Because you have PO and Abusive Sergeant example, but I have to believe like this will be used to just get
not going to save that for the burst here. I'm just going to go ahead and play the Emperor Thaurissan. All right, so Terrence is in a reasonable position here. Payton needs to deal with this board, which kind of threatening. He does have the ability to actually just attack into Emperor and Demon Wrath, which would clear everything but a a silenced Doomsayers, or just fire off the MC tech. Kind of try and get lucky.
MC tech.
It looked like he's holding that.
If you go for the Emperor,
no, not what he wanted here.
No, that's not the case.
Well, now he can attack into Emperor and coin out Bane of Doom if he wants.
I think that you have to do it. Oh. Demon Wrath is just horrible in this situation.
Yeah, now that you've committed the MC tech, it's gonna go ahead. Yeah, gonna fire off the Bane of Doom. What's in the box?
Oh, no, I just see that.
It is. Ooh, a Voidwalker's actually not bad. It does line up pretty well against the Twilight Drake here, which is only a 4/1 at the moment.
So it's not the box from Brad Pitt or with Justin Timberlake.
It's a
music video.
We were going with the Brad Pitt version.
Yeah,
we're talking about. All right,
Peddler. Well, actually, you can also just Black Knight this, but there will be bigger opportunities in this matchup, right? To Black Knight, because I think there's Defend of Argus, right? If you Defend of Argus, whatever will be, the Black Knight will be more valuable.
Though it is true that the Black Knight here is a pretty strong tempo play. Does allow you to potentially just trade in your 4/1 with the 3/3. Although it looks like he's thinking about Earthen Ring Farseer to heal up that Drake, and then just potentially attack in.
You know what's funny? The fact that the Doomsayer is still on the board. It's actually hilarious when you think that there might be Sylvanas from Payton. And it will kind of be a problem for Payton just to play around, for having the option to play around the Doomsayer when an example want to Sylvanas Shadow
of the Devil. And yeah, here comes Sylvanas, and that does look relatively attractive here.
But how much damage does he have?
I was gonna say Payton actually, if he had a power overwhelming, he could actually just win the game. You know, he could Leroy. Oh, and actually, he'd be a little bit short. Leroy power, he'd be too short. You're right. But now Emperor comes down to reduce Leroy. So if he does find the other pieces of his burst combo,
he needs the PO and he needs the faceless.
Right. That's the 20 damage combo. Leroy Jenkins power overwhelming faceless manipulator, 20 points of charge. And that's one of the reasons that Lord Jaraxxus isn't quite as appealing as it otherwise might be in this sort of matchup, because both players are running the burst combo. Playing Jaraxxus without any sort of taunts on board can just get you killed.
Yeah, that's true. So, but now Terrence needs to deal with the Emperor. You can't leave that just for another turn, because the second tick will make Payton get additional 4 innervates basically. And that's
not bad,
deal.
not bad.
Not bad, yes, I agree. Every Druid's dream.
All right, well, down to just 12 with no Reno in sight for Terrence. He's actually kind of risking disaster here.
Yep, just one draw and you're dead. Basically, that's it. If there will be Faceless Manipulator drawn for Payton, it's basically game.
Yeah, gonna go ahead and ritual out 3 guys, so that's a full board here. Well, not now, lost the guy there, but yeah, pretty threatening board. Not much life to work with though. Alex Straza is the draw. Not really too impactful right here. Both players in the teens already.
The Twisting Nether doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, I mean, he just wants to clear up the board here. And just going to go ahead and, rather than life tap, just heal himself back up with the Earthen Ring Farseer. He wants to keep pressure on the board.
Yes, exactly.
He has Terrence down to just 12 life, and keeping those minions in the board does mean that it's a danger at all points that there's the possibility of this burst coming out and ending the game.
It adds 1 out to his next turn to finish the game, because now he has not only Faceless Manipulator, but also just PO to finish up the game. Well, Dark Bomb is not in format anymore.
Right.
So that's out.
And now Terrence, he's got to be thinking through this turn exactly how he wants to manage it. He needs to find either healing or taunt, or something that actually closes the game himself. Payton did heal himself up to 22, so Terrence is missing pretty much most of the parts of the burst combo to actually close things out.
Jesus, Terrence,
I wonder if he just Jaraxxus is here. He's so low that I wonder if his best option is just to go ahead and play Lord Jaraxxus.
He gets a 6/6, right?
And yeah, he gets to use the weapon to kill the 3/3. He gets his new hero power to make it 6/6. And you know, he clearly didn't want to do this. You know, he was very hesitant to make this play because it does leave him without any real recourse against the burst combo.
But now, if he... Well, in theory, your opponent can still do the full combo, so Payton has to be aware that he might actually die next turn.
Yep.
So what do you do about this? Do you play Shadow Flame Sylvanas to take the 6-1 with you?
That's a bit ambitious, I think. I don't know, a little. That seems to be. You know, you're a little bit scared there with that play. I think that you could potentially. I don't know. You could play the.
You don't want to play
The Refreshment Vendor and Sylvanas. You do heal your opponent back up to 15
Exactly.
if you do that.
That's the problem.
Which means that you're no longer threatening lethal with just a draw of Faceless Manipulator.
So
Yeah, this is definitely an awkward spot. You know, both these players doing without some of the key taunts and things like that that can keep them safe against the threat of the burst combo. So some challenging maneuvering here, and he's actually going to go ahead and this is
Double
neat
carry.
because doubling up the Refreshment Vendor puts him up to 28, but his opponent only gets the value of 3 from it. And speaking of taunts, there is Defender of Argus.
Wow, that's a huge draw because now not only you play around your opponent's finishing moves, but also you put immense amount of pressure on your opponent, so he has to use a clear, and he used already a Twisting Nether.
Right.
So a PO with Sylvanas would be nice. Oh, sorry, what do you need to Sylvanas then? Didn't just PO the Refreshment Vendor and Shadow Flame that, right? Because that's 7 damage. But other than that, it doesn't look good for Payton if there will be 2 7/7 minions on board.
Terrence does actually also have the opportunity, if he wanted to brand Defender, if he really wanted to pump things out of even potentially the... Yeah, he's going to go ahead and do that. He's going to Defender up these and leave himself with 6/6 on the sidelines. And just push to face. So now, this is a spot that Payton doesn't really have great tools to necessarily clear. The Hellfire picked up, though.
Hellfire
that
and
do?
Demon Wrath.
But
That's
there's
5
3
damage.
6 health minions
So
on the
that
opposing
doesn't
side of
do
the board.
much.
He can't quite clear.
Well, he can go Shadow Flame on the Refreshment Vendor and then Hellfire.
That would clear the board, though he is just still facing down his opponent's Jiraxis at that point.
But there's only Sunfury Protector left in the deck to get additional taunts, and you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the deck with for the Faceless Manipulator, right? So you can kill off your opponent with the Leroy Jenkins that is just sitting there awkwardly for I don't know how many turns.
Yeah, we're going to see the life tap here, and it will provide a big game hunter.
Which can kill the 8/6, but it doesn't necessarily
still leaves a lot of threat
exactly.
on the opposing side of the board, so not as appealing as it might otherwise be. I think we may see that. I don't know. Shadow Flame plus Hellfire is a lot of resources, but I think he's going to go for it. No, he's going to go with Sylvanas here.
Wait, what?
All right.
So
Sylvanas
he's
is going to
using
be attack
the
and Shadow Flame.
anyway?
So this will mean that he takes
One of
either
the 6/6.
one of the 6 health minions here, and it is going to be the non-taunt.
Oh, I think there was some miscalculation from Payton. He looked like kind of upset about this. Well, we have the lamp in our way, but...
It's true. I can't really see his face through the lighting structure over here, but yeah. This does leave Terrence with a big taunt in play. Only 1 health left on it, but definitely still has some amount of defense here.
I'm kind of surprised. That's 8 damage that the face just gave to your opponent. It's either 6 or 8. Really surprised by that.
All right, well, now Payton is only at 13 life, and if he finds the Faceless, it's no longer enough because Terrence has healed himself back to the 15. There's Jiraxis of his own, but he's facing down...
Well, that's basically death for
Right, he's facing down 12 damage on board. We know the power of Overwhelming's in the hand.
And there's no target for the Big Game Hunter as well.
Right.
If you would have had a Abusive Surgeon, you would have just up the 6/6 to 8 attack and kill that, but that's not the case in this situation. There's no way out unless you sacrifice the Leroy Jenkins for the 6/6, but this only prolongs your agony because you don't have a win condition anymore.
Yeah, I think if you're in Payton's seat, you just have to be hoping that your opponent does not have a way to enable lethal next turn.
Man, I just can't believe that Payton practically threw the game like that.
Well, he was in a tough spot as it was. He wasn't really in a position where he had a clear road to he could have cleared the board.
Well, yeah, exactly. The Shadow Flame and the Hellfire.
But
You don't need those two pieces to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, he did leave himself in a position where Terrence got to attack for quite a bit of damage to his face. And yeah, here it is. Payton is going to concede. So we are going to a 5th game here.
I'm really surprised by that. This game was still going, like, with that clear, with the Shadow Flame and a Hellfire. There was still outs for Payton to clean up the game with the next 2 draws, basically. Oh, well, 1. If you would have gotten the...
He basically had to find Faceless,
right?
more or less, right away, even if he did clear the board there. And frankly, Terrence did have the Refreshment Vendor to get out of range of the Faceless plus Leroy combo. So it's possible that even if he had made the play you're discussing, the game would have ended in a similar fashion, just perhaps another turn or two.
That's true. Yep.
All right, well, it will be the Warrior for Payton against Terrence's Reno Lock. So we see both players deciding on their mulligans here, and Payton decides it looks like he's going to keep Harrison Jones. No, okay, I was going to say
it's good against Shaman.
I was going to say you want that you want that late in the game against Jiraxis. You don't want that in your opening hand.
True. Like if you play against the Shaman, it's basically the same turn when you play when you play Doomhammer and Harrison Jones. But in this situation, you keep it for Jiraxis, and your opponent might not be that keen on playing it like as soon as possible.
Right. Yes,
especially since the Grom and a weapon and Inner Rage just finishes you off from 15.
Yeah, so here, we're going into the classic Control Warrior versus Control Warlock matchup, which is the Warrior armors up and plays some things while the Warlock largely uses Life Tap in the early turns of the game.
And plays some swing.
It looks like we're going to see actually a bit of action.
Twilight Drake.
Coin into Twilight Drake here.
Twilight Drake is one of the cards that was basically it's the same as Yetis in this matchup. People are just trying to play something on Tin 4 that is not as easy for the Warrior to just cleanly kill.
Yeah,
right?
the huge health of Twilight Drake makes it very difficult to deal with using any damage-based removal. You pretty much need Execute to clear it off the board, and there's Execute off that Revenge. So Payton finds the answer he needs to Twilight Drake while drawing a card off of his Acolyte as well.
Good value, when you ask me.
Yeah, so Senjin comes down, will stop the eternal march of Acolyte to the face.
Well, there's Shield Block, Shield Slam if you would really like to, but I don't feel that that's the turn one.
Also, if you wanted to slam Armor Up plus Shield Slam, but there's a weapon.
There's
so
a weapon.
Easy clear off this. And these have been a couple of really nice pickups for Payton here. The Execute right when you needed it, the War Axe right when he needs it, and that Acolyte getcha, keeps coming in for 1.
This is stacking up. Like 1, 2, 3, and then you're dead.
Just 26 more turns, and this Acolyte is going to end things. Oh, you keep Life Tapping. You're just increasing my Acolyte's clock, you fool.
Oh, look at that. Taskmaster and the Acolyte. So it actually deals 3 damage now.
Yeah,
but you don't have a way of clearing the Doomsayer.
Well, you can Taskmaster Acolyte attack Doomsayer and Armor Up plus Shield Slam if you want.
Would you do that?
I'm just saying this is an opportunity.
Ooh.
Gore Howl.
I think he's actually going for it.
Yeah, he could just Shield Block, Shield Slam, and attack the Acolyte in. It does allow him to retain initiative on this board. He's just going to Shield Slam it. So does want to retain his initiative here and not allow the Doomsayer to clear the board, which I completely understand. He has a reasonable board presence that he can force his opponent to react to.
Okay, so next turn for Terrence. 6 mana available. Hellfire on the road. Why not? This is probably the best value you can get in this matchup.
No, but this Acolyte's now drawn 3 cards, which is fantastic. Exactly what you're looking for, getting off of your Acolytes. This is a matchup that's very much, as we were discussing before, about resources. And it's important to line up the appropriate resources. And when you're able to get 3 draws off Acolyte, it helps a great deal because you're fighting against a class that has Life Tap, and you really need to get maximum value off of your cards where you have the opportunity.
You just need to catch up with the card advantage that it's a natural resource for the Warlock, as you said, with the Life Tap. So it's a huge thing that Payton got the really important card draw in the beginning of the game, because now he's able to keep up with the pace of the game. So otherwise, he would have been left with 4 cards in the hand instead of 7.
Yeah, very, very different here. And now Payton, he doesn't necessarily have great potential plays this turn. He could drop his Sylvanas, but his opponent has no minions in play himself. So if that Sylvanas could just get easily removed, and yeah, he's just going to go ahead and play Armor Smith and Armor Up. He doesn't want to play Sylvanas proactively and allow his opponent to remove it immediately. He'd much rather force his opponent to deal with it awkwardly when he has minions in play.
Especially it can also get silenced. I mean,
Correct.
there's only one silence in the deck, but you don't want to get like a vanilla 5/5 without any real value. Especially that you can still get your Emperor and pair it up the Sylvanas with Brawl, which might be very important in case your opponent will build up a huge board, and you will either win the Brawl with the Sylvanas, or you get the board from your opponents.
Yeah, Sylvanas plus
side.
Brawl is definitely a very powerful combination. It's a little hard to pull off sometimes because it does require 11 mana, so you usually have to have the
Yeah, this is why I was talking about the Emperor.
Right, yes.
It's kind of interesting that it was a basic play before the nerf of Sylvanas. Because it was 5 mana and everyone was playing that. You had the access to just Sylvanas Brawl every time you wanted.
All right, well, now Payton is trying to decide exactly how he wants to maneuver his turn. He has Emperor, but he only has one of the combo pieces.
Don't you feel like one is almost enough? You can also go for the Dark Peddler this turn to see what are your options, so you can plan when do you want to play the Emperor if you get the PO, an example.
One of the big things with Emperor, though, is that you really, in this particular matchup, in a lot of matchups where the burst combo matters, you care about having the combo pieces reduced. In this matchup against Warrior, one of the most important cards to reduce is Jiraxxus. Because you want to be able to play Jiraxxus and generate an Infernal in the same turn, because it takes it from just a value-oriented long game play to a play that actually has a significant tempo play as well. All right, well, there is the Emperor from Terrence. He could play that and actually get the Sylvanas and Brawl reduced to enable that as a single turn play. And that's what we'll see. We see Emperor come down, Armor come up, and Terrence reduces the cost of that hand.
How do you remove the Emperor now? Or just silence
He
it?
does have Abusive Sergeant plus BGH if he wants to just blow it up with that.
But there will be more targets for the Big Game Hunter in this matchup.
It's true. But I think that it's a strong tempo play here. He doesn't have a great opportunity to get rid of it otherwise. Yeah, he's just going to go ahead and clear that off and leave himself with a bit of a board.
There's the Jiraxxus that you mentioned. The Emperor tick will be way more interesting for Terrence in the upcoming turn, especially since he just built up the tempo. Payton needs to deal with the board, so most likely Terrence will be able to play the Emperor without any fear of getting it removed, like immediately from the board.
Yeah, I would expect that Terrence is, now that he did dodge the Jiraxxus, is going to be looking to play that next turn for sure. Assuming that there isn't something super scary like a Sylvanas on the other side of the table. And this axe going to face has to be a little bit scary. When you're in Payton's seat here, you have to start thinking about, okay, is he setting up Grom? Because now if you do just play Jiraxxus, you're thinking, okay, well, there's this possibility of burst. Not looking to play that this turn, but I imagine we'll see Payton trade into the Sylvanas and then possibly just play the Emperor afterwards.
What about if you play the Dark Peddler first and see if you get a PO, so you can play Sylvanas PO and get his Sylvanas?
That's an opportunity. That is potentially...
You don't lose much if they play the Dark Peddler this turn anyway, right?
Kodo.
Oh, Kodo. Okay, I didn't
Ooh.
see that coming, to be honest.
Oh, actually, didn't even notice the Spellbreaker in his hand. That's a pretty great way to deal with that Sylvanas there.
That's true. Cleanly
takes it off instead of picking anything up. Here I am just thinking about, the lovely Emperor into Jiraxxus, and totally missed that one.
Which is even more funny because we actually talked about this Spellbreaker before, like 3 turns ago.
Listen, man, okay? Sometimes I forget things. All right, well, Brawl will clean this board up a bit, leaves just a Spellbreaker. And
Which
Fiery War Axe clears that up,
Yeah.
and then Elise Starseeker comes down.
And the Elise Starseeker is not the best. Like when you think about it, like the map into the monkey, it's not that beneficial in this matchup. Even when you play like on a full hand, because the legendary cards might have less impact on what is happening in the game than does the usual warrior cards.
Yeah, in many cases, when you're playing a deck like Reno Lock and you have these high impact things like Jiraxxus, that you're really trying to create a window to play. the cards that you're scared about are spells. The cards that you're scared about or very specific things like Grom with Enabler, which is a spell. You know, yeah, maybe there's a Cruel Taskmaster in there, but that's not a legendary.
Yeah,
So you know, these things are much more threatening. These particular combinations that you intentionally put into your deck, they don't tend to come together off the monkey. So when your opponent does monkey, it's like, okay, well now it's kind of just safe to Jiraxis because all the things going to really punish me are gone. Then your opponent gets Harrison off of it, and you're like, oh my god, ruined.
Or you get a King Crush.
It's true. It's true.
Well, it's only 8 damage, right? But it's kind of like a low value drop.
All right, well, Terrence is able to clear off the Elise here and gets himself a Voodoo Doctor, a little bit of healing. And this
Well, with Bran, it's 4.
Well, we were discussing how the plays that Payton made, attacking face with the weapon, is the sort of thing that telegraphs that you may have Grom in your hand. And Terrence is kind of playing scared of Grom now. He's thinking, okay, I've got to position myself such that my opponent can't possibly just kill me with Grom plus Slam.
Twist and Nether, that will help a lot if your opponent will not burst you down with the Grom.
Yeah, and we're going to see Emperor and...
Do you life tap? It's 14? Well, you can actually life tap because you need that Green Jackson. Wait, will you overdraw? No.
He can Voodoo Doctor, yeah.
Yes.
He can life tap and Doctor, which does...
He can actually Mortal Coil as well, if he really wants to get a discount on something else in his deck.
It's true. He could trade in the 2/1 body for a new card if he wanted to, which is frankly, a play that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. Is just, oh,
but it might be.
It could have actually been a reasonable option there because not only does it cycle through his deck, but it gets him another card in his deck reduced.
When you think about it, Kodo has a huge impact in this matchup because it can kill an Acolyte of Pain without drawing a card.
Sure. All right, well, there is Faceless. So we have Leroy.
Would have been 4 mana.
Yeah, we have Leroy and Faceless, and the Ooze takes out Gorehowl, which is huge because the threat of that Gorehowl not only can keep chopping away at minions, but does dramatically increase the burst potential that Payton has, threatening to potentially close out the game were Terrence to play Jiraxis, or frankly just right now because he's only at 14.
Well, there's Acolyte.
There's the Acolyte of Pain. You're just summoning cards.
Yeah, I know. The same happens when I'm casting
that Kodo is great because he can kill Acolyte of Pain. It's like, well, Acolyte of Pain is nowhere to be. Oh, there it is.
This happens always. Just ask Noxious.
I've seen it. I understand.
What now?
Just a big picture of the matchup. Imagine like turn 4. Oh yes, Acolyte of Pain for the Warrior. Now I can get back into the game because I'll draw cards. Nope.
All right, looks like we're going to see Slam plus Armor Up plus Shield Slam, removing the Ooze and Sylvanas, leaving the lone Voodoo Doctor on the board. He's just dominant here. No one can really threaten him. And there's the Acolyte, which we may very well get stampeded on.
And Reno Jackson.
Oh, and that's a big draw too. Yeah,
wow,
he can
that's
Reno
huge.
plus Kodo. And yeah, just a little bit of nod from Payton, though we do see Alex Straza in the opposing hand, so that life gain not quite as impactful as it might be otherwise.
But it's still perceived as a great option, right?
Yep.
To play
and
just to drop the
there is
Reno.
Grom. So now there is the threat of that burst coming any moment, and speaking of burst, power warming, is that lethal? He has 20 from his hand with the combo. He has the reduced Leroy.
29.
So he has, it's 29. So he's at 30 life. He's 1 damage off lethal.
Well, I'm
so
guessing.
Close.
I think I know what is chat spamming right now. I think I know, but I'm
lethal?
not sure.
I think they're probably spamming lethal.
Yeah, it might be lethal or just one off.
At any given time, chat's spamming lethal. So that's not really a fair thing to say.
Well, if you're like a competitive player, the first thing you check on your list when you're starting a turn, do I have lethal?
No, the first
thing
thing that I do is see, okay, can I play Yogg-Saron? Can I do something really cool?
Well,
we'll look to see if I missed lethal later, okay?
Well, he's trading. He's not.
Oh, all right. So
okay.
he's just playing this safely. He has a huge resource advantage here. He has 7 cards in hand, 3 minions on the board. His opponent has just 3 cards. So he's definitely in a position where he can afford to play a little bit safe. He still has that 20 points of burst in his hand. So he has, this board that he's developed here is still really threatening.
And if you have Brand Bronze Build and you play Jiraxis, you get 2 Jiraxises.
You get to turn into Jiraxis twice. That's really actually kind of exciting.
Too bad it doesn't like stack up the health.
Does it
30.
actually? Does it do the animation
Yeah,
twice?
it,
I've actually
it
never
does the
done
animation. I actually did that today.
How
but
exciting!
But it's just the the blink of the lights.
Okay.
You don't have the
And
second.
speaking of the Lord Juraxis, here he is. I gotta see some emotes. I'll be very disappointed if I see no emotes. Doom! Oblivion! Alright, well now, Payton, he has Braum, but he has no way to get through this taunted up Kodo, nor any way to activate it currently, so...
Well, what he needs to do is brawl this in and play his own minion just to get the chance of clearing up the board. Because he knows that this is coming to an end really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a difficult situation. Payton both is behind in terms of has to worry about dying and needs to find a way to actually win the game himself. So, you know, there's so much threat in the board from Terrence and the repeated threat of these Infernals coming down every turn. And his hand for Payton here, we see his face is just in his hands. Because he doesn't really see any good way out of this situation, neither do I.
Doesn't look good, that's for sure. You have to think now, what could have been done differently in this game? Maybe the first brawl should have been paired with the Sylvanas, right? Maybe that was the mistake that did cost him the game.
I don't know. I mean, there's
well,
both
he didn't
players
lose
had a lot
yet.
of choices. Right. Yeah. This game's not over yet. He's gonna go ahead and play his minion in brawl. So he's kind of just hoping to get lucky here. He wants the Blood of Brave to survive.
And he didn't
not.
get lucky.
It is
So
actually
that's
Infernal that survives.
No, he gets 4.
So again, we're 1 damage off lethal, but
No, we're actually that's done because
we?
that's exactly 29.
oh, it's 29. I thought it was
Yes.
still at 30. Yeah, no, that is exact lethal here. So
Terrence is happy, but he's still
chat's
counting
right,
it
I'm wrong.
twice. I'm pretty much sure it's 29.
yeah, there it is. No, it is 29 for sure. Here it
Exactly.
comes.
Woo! Double Nero Jenkins.
And yeah, that's going to be it. So TerrenceM takes down Payton, who was
The favorite.
the one remaining undefeated player in the tournament. So now we just have both these players, or rather, both these players have one loss. They're both 7-1 going into the last round.
Yeah, I think Terrence, like, it's funny because Reno Warlock was played by both these guys, and so far I'd say, like, I know that I underestimated that deck quite a bit. I thought maybe Zoo was simply better, and Reno Warlock, every single version seemed a little bit too unrefined, right? Everything seemed to try to be doing what it was doing pre-patch, but post-patch they lost so much with the rotation that I thought it wouldn't be as good. But as it turns out, the combo version, if you can tweak it 10,000 ways, as we saw there with a Black Knight in the list. We've seen Crazed Alchemist and some of the ones. It's like it's really easy to tech.
Yeah, there's just a lot of powerful options, and Warlock, you know, so much strength in these control matchups with life tap.
Right.
And in the long games, Lord Juraxis really gives you that power that's very difficult for other decks to match.
Yeah,
Did you see any kind like of turns when actually maybe something might have been done differently to turn like the matchup around?
I think when Payton played his Warlock, there was a really interesting turn with Shadow Flame, I guess, and Hellfire, where there might have been an opportunity to seal a lethal on the following turn if he'd only used his 2 AoEs together. Instead of trying to play a Sylvanas and steal the 8-1. There's also a turn that I think Terrence didn't catch on to, where he had an 8-1 Infernal on the board. He could have power overwhelmed it, traded into the opponent's minion, and then silenced off the PO to keep the minion alive and probably be healthy. And then exactly, and then get back the, well, it would have been like an 8-3, but there's nothing to kill it, and then he wins on the following. There's like a lot of little plays. Sylvanas Brawl as well in the last game was a little bit of a debatable play.
Yeah, I mean, well, with you know these kind of matchups, you know, there's so many possible decisions on both sides. So you know, these players have piloted these decks, you know, throughout this tournament to the top of the standings. Really, these are two players who are definite favorites to be moving on to the top 16.
Yeah, right. With that, we'll have Terrence come back for another interview. We had a little bit of an interview earlier with Frodan, but the winner of the match, Terrence, will be talking to us about the decks that we saw him play. I am a little curious as to what prompted that. So, Terrence, welcome back to the casting desk, and congratulations on your win against Payton. So, give me through the thought process of the deck that you brought, because the Reno lock that you built with the combo version, a lot of people think, including myself, that the deck is not quite refined yet, but yours and Payton seem to be on the right track.
Yeah, so with the Reno lock, I really wanted something that countered Patron. So, that's a pretty good one with the Hellfire, Shadow Flame, Twisting Nether, whatever. And it also beats like the other control decks, like Priest, Control Warrior, and like specifically the combo part. I want to have a like edge in the mirror match as well, so that's why I chose to go with the combo, even though some people choose to like cut the Leroy faceless.
Right. Like I didn't see Mountain Giant either.
Yeah.
So you're not playing that. Well, a lot of people are still including it as kind of a habit.
Something has to be on the line because they both were piloting it,
Right.
the version with the Leroy, and you both were on the top on the standings right now in this round 8 of the Swiss format.
Yeah. Do you think Reno Lock is simply better than Zoo overall, or is it just a preference choice?
So there's like 2 versions of my lineup that I was thinking about, and it was the Patron and the Rogue are pretty much the Patron and the Rogue are pretty much locked in, and then I was thinking of like either Zoo and Paladin as the others, but yeah, I decided to like go with the Zoo just to fit the lineup and have the counter for Patron. And like I didn't want to play Priest, which is another thing that counters Payton.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah. I could see that. It's something you play as a dedicated player, but not everybody will be comfortable with it. So makes sense. So I mean, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
You managed to bring down Payton from the top of the podium.
Yeah.
You know, usually we expect at least one undefeated player in the lineup, but it's not happening this time around.
So you're 7-1 currently, right?
That's just one more round, so
great
you got to be feeling good here.
Yeah, feeling really
You're
good.
probably going in guaranteed at this point. So
Yeah.
basically, whatever happens next is just a matter of seeding for the second part.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, we'll be moving on to the break before we go on to round 9, which will be the last round of the Swiss, and then we have the final one afterwards, where we'll start going on to top 16. So stay tuned, guys. DreamHack, grand-prix in Austin.